Everybody, welcome to Sociology 204 COVID-19 edition. This is going to be the strange online world we live in. I'm sorry we're not in a room together, but welcome to Sociology. I wanted to give you a little bit of an introduction to the class from the empty streets of Portland, Oregon, city of 100,000 hipsters all sleeping in at the moment. I wanted to tell you a little bit in this introductory video about the idea behind the class, why the class is important, why I'm teaching it, why you're here, and kind of what the structure of the class is going to be as we move online and do this in a little bit of a different way than we normally do now that we're all quarantined. I want to say at the beginning, this is a really great class to be taking right now. It's a great time to be a sociologist. It's a great time to be asking some of the big questions. What's going on in the world? How is the world being changed by this? How will we adapt to our new environment? Will the world be different when we come out of this? And will there be an opportunity to find equity and fairness and sort of new ways of interacting as we go through this period of our common history? So it's a really great time to be taking an intro sociology class. And I think the things that we get into in this class will relate to us even as we're all locked down in our individual quarantines. I think it'll be a way of finding ways of connecting us. So even though it's really strange, it's kind of the perfect time to be talking about this subject. Just a little bit of a background about me. You may be wondering, who is this guy who's teaching this class? So my name's Dr. Blazak, and I grew up in a town in Georgia called Stone Mountain, Georgia. Stone Mountain is the birthplace of the Ku Klux Klan. Maybe you've heard of them. And it started me on a journey growing up in that environment, sort of wondering about the issues of race. And as a kid in Stone Mountain, I really didn't know how to make sense of it until I went off to a place called college, and I went to a university called Emory University, which is kind of famous because it's where the CDC is, Center for Disease Control. It's where they cured Ebola. And I was a pre-med student, and I took an intro sociology class as a way to kind of break up my schedule. I didn't know much about it, and it really helped me to make sense of my childhood growing up in a Klan town, and started me on a journey really looking into the issue of race. And so I decided, instead of becoming a medical doctor, that I would become a sociologist, and went to graduate school at Emory, where I continued this research around the issue of racism. And my doctoral work was trying to understand a new hate group that began to emerge in the 1980s called the racist skinheads. The racist skinheads were behind some pretty brutal violence, including here in Portland. They murdered an Ethiopian PCC student not too far from here in southeast Portland in 1988. And my work as a researcher was trying to understand this new phenomena that was happening. And I did that through something that we're going to talk about called ethnographic research. I did field research. I went undercover in the white supremacist movement for several years to try to understand how those people do, why they do what they do. And when I finished and had my PhD in 1995, I came to Portland because Portland was kind of famous for skinhead violence. I hate to say, there's a lot of reasons people come to Portland: the beer, the coffee, cocktails, other fluids. But I came for the Nazis. I came for the Nazis and took a tenure track position at Portland State University, where I was for 20 years and doing this work and continue to do this work. And one of the hats that I wear is I'm the chair of the Oregon Coalition Against Hate Crimes, and so part of my job is keeping track of all the hate issues in the state of Oregon. And when I got tenure at Portland State, one of the things I wanted to do is go back and teach intro sociology, because for me, that's where it all started. Intro sociology, we used to call it the everything you know is wrong class. It's the place where you really kind of get the tools to make sense of the world, and it really literally changed my life. I hate to use that word literally, but it literally changed my life. And my great joy now is to bring the excitement about sociology and the practicality of sociology to students in intro sociology classes. So that's one of the reasons when I got a call from PCC asking me to teach intro sociology, I just jumped on it, because I really wanted to share the excitement with students about this idea of the liberating power of it. It's a liberal arts. It doesn't mean it's liberal versus conservative. It means it's liberating. That's what we mean by liberal arts. And so I'm really excited to be doing this. We're going to be having a virtual classroom. We're not going to be meeting on campus at Rock Creek like we normally do. Maybe at the end of the quarter, there might be a chance for us to actually get together in a room together. And generally, the knowledge has been that online classes are at a disadvantage. There's something about having students in the room together. We know from the research that students retain more information. They kind of learn more by being in a room together. And so this is my first time of doing an online class. So we're going to be all kind of going through this together. But I'm committed to making this as dynamic and as interesting, even though you're probably sitting in front of your laptop or your phone in your pajamas right now taking this class, which normally doesn't happen at Rock Creek, although I think it happened once. So let's capture the magic of the classroom. This is a difficult subject. There's some complex theories, there's some intense reading, and so I want to make sure as many people as possible pass this class, because every quarter there are people who don't. So we really want to help people move through it. And we want to talk about things that are important. We want to talk about the virus. We want to talk about issues of race and religion, and especially gender, which is going to be a hot topic. We have to ask questions. I'm always interested in what people know in general versus what they don't know. I mean, it's amazing how many people know about the Tiger King. How many people know about the Tiger King and don't know who Stephen Breyer is? If you don't know who Stephen Breyer is, I guarantee you Stephen Breyer has a bigger impact on your life than the Tiger King does. So maybe Google Stephen Breyer and find out why that person is very important in your life. This is a great place to start tackling those questions and figuring out what's going on and how to really make sense using sort of social scientific principles. And I love doing it at PCC because we have such a diverse student population. It really makes it that much more dynamic. Okay, so that's just a little bit about my, where I'm coming from on this topic. Let's talk about the structure of the class. So you have the syllabus. I emailed it out, but it's also on D2L. So you have the syllabus. Take a good look at that. That's sort of our contract for the next 10 or 11 weeks, how this quarter is going to unfold, all the expectations of the students. We have 2 books for this class. The first one is a textbook by Anthony Giddens. Anthony Giddens is a leading British sociologist. He is a guy that we read in graduate school, and the fact that he wrote an intro textbook is really, really cool. The textbook is called Introduction to Sociology. I think that's the name of it. And we're using the 10th edition. The reason I'm using the 10th edition is because it's cheaper. It's cheaper. Now let me take a moment to say there's a real racket, and I think students know this, about charging students higher rates to buy books just because they're required for a class. Textbooks are insanely expensive. You've got a captive audience of students, and they're required to buy this textbook, and a book that should be $20 is $130. I mean, it's just the biggest ripoff. So I'm using the 10th edition instead of the 11th edition, which is the new one. Still really good stuff, but you should be able to find it really cheap. In fact, there are some online versions of it that maybe people can find. So the 10th edition of the Giddens book. And then I always like to use an outside book. I've used books like The Autobiography of Malcolm X. I've used 1984, the novel by George Orwell. I've used books about history. I've used books about race. The book we're using this quarter as our outside book is called The Chalice and the Blade by Riane Eisler. It's a book about one question, and the one question is, why do we have an idea that God is male? Where did that come from? What does that mean, the notion that God is gendered? What's the origin of that? We haven't always had that, and the whole world doesn't have that. It's kind of a thing that we have. So where does that come from, and what is the impact on the world? And so we're going to be talking about that book a lot. It came out in 1987, when the world was kind of on the edge of nuclear war. It was the peak of the Cold War, and it's a very important book. And when I read it as a graduate student, it turned my head around. And so I'm so excited that we get to read this book together and talk about it and kind of apply it to the world we're in right now. So The Chalice and the Blade, you can also find it super cheap used on Amazon. If you want to go that route, get it as soon as possible, because we're going to be talking about it. Okay, so here's how the class is going to work. I'm going to lecture. But I won't be in the room with you. I'll be doing it in front of my laptop probably, and I will upload those lectures to my YouTube channel, which you have the link for, and I will email a question out about each lecture that you will answer after you watch a lecture, and email it back to me. So you get those points for that, for the lecture question points. So watch the lectures, and they'll be in chunks. So you can kind of sit and watch some, and then come back and watch some later. So you'll have that. But then once each week we're going to try to anyway, to have these online Zoom discussions. So you have a section on your D2L that says online rooms, and there'll be a list of our weekly meeting chats. So on my Monday, Wednesday class, they'll be on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. On my Friday classes, they'll be Fridays at noon. and we will have a discussion about the readings and the lecture material, and I will send a discussion question out, and we'll all Zoom in, and it'll be like the Brady Bunch, I guess. And if you don't know the Brady Bunch reference, just ask your grandparents. Each student is expected to participate, meaning sort of comment or have questions on at least one of those weekly Zoom discussions. And if there's some access issues, because I know people have different levels of access to technology, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. There are other ways of doing that, but we're going to be trying that pretty soon, and so you'll be getting emails. So the big thing is to pay attention to the emails. Watch for emails from me about what the discussion questions are, what the links are to the Zoom discussions and the videos. We do a series of research exercises throughout the quarter, 4 research exercises, which will be kind of writing assignments. Some of them will be reflective. Some of them ask you to go out and do some research, and we will give those out sporadically through the quarter, and you'll turn them in via email. And then we have a midterm. We're going to try to do a traditional midterm, although it'll be a take-home midterm, and a final that'll cover both the reading material from the Giddens book and Eisler, as well as the lecture material. And so you'll get a review sheet, and we'll kind of lead you through that. And then we're done. So we're going to try to do this conversation virtually in these remote locations, wherever you are, wherever I am, and talk about some of these issues that really, really matter in the world, and have what we call a sociological experience. So let's see how it goes. Be looking for some emails from me, and the next lecture video, it should be already up on YouTube for our very first lecture, and check it out, and I hope this works. All right, I'm really excited to have you here, and that's it. We'll see you in a bit.